you have to get rid of some cards that you like to be able to get cards that you're going to love.
What's up, wrestling fans, trading card collectors? Welcome to another episode of Wrestling with Cards. We've got Caleb Edkins on the show today. Caleb has been involved with the wrestling card community for quite a while now, but the real reason that I wanted to have him on was to talk about this amazing PC that he has curated that's like nothing else I've seen before in wrestling cards.
Always doing it.
I just really connected with him and thought it was awesome the way that he put this together, which we're going to talk about today. No spoilers yet. And of course, we're going to talk about how he kind of got into wrestling cards and the hobby, just kind of his journey, what he's learned along the way. Maybe talk a little bit about sports cards as well. This is going to be a can't-miss conversation for all you hobbyists out there. But before we get into that, just a few quick plugs, per usual, of how you, the viewers, the wrestling card community, can help continue showing your support for my content and this channel. The easiest thing you can do, and it's free, hit the subscribe button, give me a like, give me 50 likes, however you want to do it. Make sure to share it with a friend. A lot of wrestling fans out there are buying the shirts, buying the figures, buying magazines, etc. But they're not quite buying wrestling cards yet. And that's what me and Tony Vella from WrestlingTradingCards.com, Paul and Ann from the Wrestling Card Price Guide, Chuckster out there putting in the work. All these guys out there just trying to push wrestling cards to the mainstream. This isn't pump and dump. This is to just build a community. Speaking of Tony Vella, he's part of a podcast I'm doing, which you're going to want to check out, Worlds Collide. Myself and him, worlds colliding, bantering about all things wrestling cards. And also check out my personal podcast, the Wrestling with Cards podcast, which is an audio-only companion piece to these videos. A lot of it's the same stuff, a lot of it's different, but it's all usually re-recorded. So please subscribe to both of those shows as well, share those with a friend, and don't forget to leave us 5-star Dave Meltzer reviews on all platforms that you're listening to the shows on. Also, don't forget to check out the links below in the show notes where you'll be able to find links to Caleb's Twitter and Instagram. After this interview, you're going to want to make sure to go give him a follow. But as usual, you can check out my links as well. All of my social links are down there. There's links to my Patreon page where you can get involved with the show and steer the direction of the content, have your voice heard as the viewer. Links to Spotify where I like to share a lot of playlists and cool music. You guys know I love music. And of course, coffee. You guys have been sending in those donations to keep me caffeinated. Greatly appreciated. It's keeping me pumping out this content, shaking the ropes like the Ultimate Warrior. Baby! But let's talk to Caleb. What's up, wrestling fans? We've got Caleb here from probably the most famous PC put together. We're going to talk about that. Still no spoilers yet, but Caleb, welcome.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yep. One thing that I don't think many people are familiar with you about is kind of how you got into the hobby. We've focused a lot on the PC you've been putting together. That's the main event of this show. But just kind of tell people how you got started, how long you've been collecting, and then we'll get into wrestling cards after that.
Yeah, definitely. So I've been collecting cards in general since I was a little kid. Something my dad collected. He had a pretty massive collection of memorabilia and sports cards, and so that's something that was passed on to me when I was little. Started off like opening packs like most people do. And that's kind of how I collected up until like high school, I would say. And then I had a little period where I fell off, wasn't collecting as much, and then got back into it in 2019 in college. I would pretty much just go to Walmart, buy a blast or two while I was getting groceries, and that was really the extent of my involvement then. And then once I started getting back into it right as kind of the boom was about to happen during quarantine and all that. And so once that happened, I was really priced out of most like retail was impossible to find, priced out of hobby boxes, and which was kind of the main way that I collected up to that point. So I decided, okay, this like my original plan was this whole year I'm going to go only buying singles. I'm going to try a new way of collecting that I haven't before. And I still bought some retail here and then, flipped some, traded some, opened some. But my focus had shifted more so towards buying singles. And with singles also going up in price, I started turning to like non-sports stuff. I found out about wrestling stuff. I was just doing some like late night YouTube watching, came across your channel actually.
Thank you.
Yep, definitely. And I sent you some messages like that first night that I was watching stuff, asked you some questions, and like right before the new year, I looked back on my eBay history before we did
This is going to
this.
be interesting.
Yeah. It was like December 29th. I paid like $10 for an Impel 91 box. That was my
Oh
first.
my.
I
Yeah.
know that was like my first wrestling thing that I decided to get. And so that was kind of like my reintroduction to wrestling cards. Came kind of out of them being cheaper than sports cards initially. But wrestling was something that me and my brother loved watching when we were little. We were both big Undertaker fans, which is we're going to get into later.
Sure.
But that was kind of how everything started.
So interesting. You kind of have a similar story to a lot in that one way, like you were a wrestling fan, of course, but you weren't exactly collecting the cards per se. Were you mainly into sports going into that and then it shifted to wrestling?
I will say when I was a kid, I did collect wrestling cards then as well.
Okay.
It wasn't like my primary collection. I would get like 2007, 2006 Heritage. They came in little tins in retail.
Yeah.
I would open a couple of those every now and then, but that was more like a byproduct of being obsessed with wrestling at the time, not necessarily like being a big wrestling card fan at the time.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's just interesting that it seems like there's a lot of people that have got into wrestling cards or come back to them because they were priced out of regular sports cards or they got tired of them. I mean, that's one thing that I've seen. Modern sports, to me, there's a lot of it's honestly just boring from a like collector, unless you're just a diehard team or player collector. Like wrestling and some of the non-sports, whether it's like Marvel or Pokemon or Harry Potter, a lot of that stuff is just a lot more interesting to me. So it kind of sounds like that's what's happened to you as you transition to wrestling. So when you transitioned into more so like, hey, I'm going to start really collecting wrestling cards, where did you start there? Like what direction were you in your mind starting from there?
So thinking back now after what you just said, one of the things that also pushed me towards wrestling was like going out to retail, trying to find boxes and stuff. Everything that was left behind was WWE Chrome, WWE Finest. That's what was left a lot of the time. So every now and then I would grab a box, grab a rack pack, whatever it may be, and I would open those just because I was a fan of wrestling before, knew some of the names. And so I opened a couple of those boxes and I was like, okay, I should look back into some other wrestling cards, see what's going on with this. And so at that time when I got the Impel box, that was kind of me shifting more into like educating myself of what was out there and moving away from modern a little bit. But that was one of the main ways that I got started in it. And then once I started doing more research, I tried to kind of narrow my focus. I didn't want to just collect like everything. I felt like I needed to give myself some parameters in order to A, be able to afford it, and B, just to kind of curate my collection a little bit better. And so then I started thinking back, like I mentioned before, Undertaker was one of my favorite wrestlers of all time when I was a little kid. He was definitely my favorite. And I realized that I had started picking up some Undertaker cards here and there. But I did want to have some representation of other wrestlers in my collection. I didn't want to just be a player collection, even though I love The Undertaker. I wanted to have some other representation. I started brainstorming and thinking and realized that his WrestleMania streak had a lot of pretty prominent wrestlers in it. And if I were to collect maybe one really nice card of each of those people, then that would be a good way to have my Undertaker collection, but also have some other wrestlers in it. And so that's what sparked the Streak PC.
The Streak PC, this thing, if you're in the community, everybody knows about it. It's one of the most original ideas I've ever come across. So I'm just going to give you the floor to talk about everything Streak PC you want to. And if I'll just interject if I've got some questions.
Yeah, for sure. I actually have like all the cards stacked next to me. So as I'm going through, I'll kind of like,
yeah, sure,
refer to different cards and whatnot. But yeah, so basically the Streak PC is my project I've been working on for the past 6 months. It feels like it's been so much longer, but when I went back and checked, it's only been 6 months.
It does feel like it's been a lot longer than that.
Yeah, honestly. But yeah, it was just a project to represent and commemorate the Undertaker's WrestleMania streak. So I have, of course, my Undertaker cards that are in my personal collection, but then I also have one iconic key rookie card, whatever you want to call it, of each of the people that he defeated along the way in the streak. So I started off, one of the first things that I got is I wanted to find an Undertaker card that would be kind of like the culmination of all my Undertaker cards, or like the key card for the Undertaker. And so this is, take out the plastic. This is the first card that I picked up for the Streak PC, technically, and it's the 91 Classic Undertaker in an SGC 9.5.
Gotta say, it looks good in the black slab. It's very fitting for the Undertaker, and that image is fantastic.
Yep. I like the SGC slabs quite a bit, and that's something that I'll talk about a little bit later on. Hopefully, eventually want to get the cards all graded or protected in some sort of way, and that's kind of the way that I'm leaning. But yeah, that was kind of what kicked it off. This was at a time when PSA 9s of the Undertaker were like over $1,000 easily, I think. And so this came up for a good deal. Someone put it in the wrestling card Discord, and I immediately bought it. Because I figured, worst case, if I wanted to try and break it out and send it to PSA or whatever, I trusted SGC's grading. But at this point, like you said, I love how it looks in the slab, and I think it's gonna stay that way. But that was really what kicked it off. And so then I kind of went on a pretty big buying spree of like some of the lesser value cards. And these are two that I'm actually hoping to upgrade at some point. But I then picked up Jimmy Superfly Snuka. This actually came from your Sports Lot store.
You're welcome. I don't even know who I'm selling to. Like, sometimes when I'm selling stuff, I'll see it and I'm like, oh yeah, I know that person. And then other times, like, I'll get a note or an email or something like, hey, I bought these cards from you on X platform. And I'm like, oh, all right. So sorry I didn't personalize it or something.
Oh, no, that is all good. I just, I remember starting to go through Sport Lots to try and find some of the lesser value ones, and remembering your username from eBay. I was like, oh, I guess I'll give Zhan my 50 cents or whatever it was.
Thanks. Yeah. And Sport Lots is a great platform for some of the lower end stuff.
Definitely. I found that to be really helpful, especially if I could find a bunch of things I needed, like even if it was just cool Undertaker cards I found, and then also something like that for the Street PC. I tried to use that whenever I could, but most of the stuff ended up coming from eBay. And then alongside that was the OPG Jake the Snake. Those are two that I think I'll eventually try and upgrade to the Wrestling All-Stars for.
Okay.
I got these at the time. I got the Jake the Snake because it has Jake the Snake as his name instead of Jake Roberts. And then the Jimmy Snuka one was just cheaper at the time. But those are the only two that I hope to upgrade eventually.
When you're building this out, are you just trying to complete it using placeholders like you said? Because I think that's interesting that a lot of people would just immediately be like, I have to have the rookie card or nothing. And what I like that you're doing is, like, some of these may be the rookie card, sure. Some of them may be the tippy top versions of said card. But I like that you're picking certain cards that aren't necessarily that card, and maybe it is an important card, but it's just interesting, once again, I mean, as if this PC wasn't interesting enough, to see that certain cards exist. So I'll let you keep going.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a great point. One of the reasons that I made the exception with those two cards is because I considered it like the first licensed card. And I was okay with, I'm not the world's biggest Jake the Snake fan or Jimmy Snuka. So my priorities were elsewhere when I first started on the project. And then as I started getting towards the end and chasing the big card that we'll talk about later on, then that's kind of when I decided, like, okay, I should probably go for the Wrestling All-Stars version of the other two that I have as well.
Hope you guys out there watching are taking notes on how to build a big PC here.
Yeah, right. But so those were the only two that I really hope to upgrade down the line or change out cards. Everything else, for the most part, is locked in. And then this was like the most anticlimactic one of all of them, was The El Gigante.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I only even have it in a top loader, as you can see. Like, I gotta protect that at some point. But that actually came. One of the reasons I picked that card instead of the what's the other 91 set, the black border ones,
the championship marketing.
Yeah. The reason I went with the Impel instead of that one was because that came from the box that I got, like the first wrestling box that I opened when I came back to collecting.
Cool.
So it has
See,
a little bit of sentimental value.
Exactly. Something, I talk about a lot, the stories behind the cards and maybe what specifically a certain card means to somebody, even if the dollar amount is not there. And that's a perfect example.
Right. I think he also has a Chromie card as well, but that'll probably be the one that stays in the Street PC just for sentimental reasons.
That's what you got to do. I love it.
Yep. And so moving on, next one, it's another OPC, King Kong Bundy.
Nice.
Really like this that image, and I was pretty happy being able to get that and the Jake the Snake cards. They're both in pretty good condition off of eBay, so I was happy about those two. And that's also such an iconic set. I feel like the look of it is so cool. And that's another reason I wasn't as torn up about having a different card for Jimmy Snuka and Jake the Snake. Just because I like how those look a lot. And speaking of cards that I love how they look, this is one of my favorite sets ever. The Action Pack Diesel. It's so funny thinking back about like some of the prices that stuff was at when I got this stuff, and like remembering that I was like waiting for something to come up on eBay or waiting for it to come up at like a reasonable price, and that was one of those. It was being shipped from Canada, and it was like super. Grab that because I love the Action Pack set and need it for the PC.
And it's interesting you talk about pricing. Like, it's amazing what you used to be able to buy stuff for.
Yeah.
And it's still amazing what you can buy stuff for currently, even though the prices have gone way up, even on like, stuff that's not worth very much. But compared to the sports card world, wrestling's still incredibly affordable.
Oh, yeah. And that was something that got me really excited when I got into wrestling cards, was feeling like the grails or the really historic and important pieces in that subgenre of collecting are still attainable.
Yep.
And that's something that still keeps me going right now, even though I've completed this PC project. It's now kind of pushing towards, okay, I'll probably never own a 52 mantle. I'll probably never own a big card like that in other sports, but there's still that potential to own those kind of caliber of cards in wrestling cards, which is very exciting for me.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we're going to talk about what your future of collecting going is for, but let's stick with this Street PC.
Yeah.
People, I'm sure, are loving this. This is amazing.
Yeah, definitely. And you'll appreciate this one as a connoisseur of beat up cards. This is the 91 Merlin, Sid and Taker. And you can see it's pretty worse for wear, but
love that set.
Yeah, me too. I like that one a lot. I love the white borders. I love the pictures that they chose. And I was able to get the whole set of Undertaker cards from that in that sort of condition for like $60.
Oh my, that's cheap.
Very happy to be able to get them for that. And I really like this one especially because it's considered like Undertaker rookie year, and it had both of them on it. So I figured that would be probably the best representation for this type of collection of Sid Vicious.
Agreed.
Yeah. And another one, and that's something that you'll see as I go through them. Sometimes I may not have like the mainstream rookie card or iconic card of a person, but there's reasoning for it. Like this is one that I chose for Kane. It's Kane tombstoning Undertaker. And this
classic
is still,
magazine card.
Exactly. Yep. This is still like in the time frame of some of his first cards, excluding Isaac Yankem. For this one, I felt like I wanted to have Kane cards instead of the Isaac Yankem card. And that's one that I chose because it also featured Undertaker in it.
So are you trying to go, if there's a card, like if there's an important card from around the same time period that does feature the Undertaker in the same picture, or is that what you're going with if an option?
For the most part, yeah. It wasn't a hard rule. Like I didn't scour every card in the years around there rookie time.
Mm-hmm.
But if I came across a card that was close to that time period and had the Undertaker in it, I went with it. And that's
Awesome.
something else about this collection. Like when you decide to do something like this and you create it and make it up, there's no rules to it. So like I can do whatever I want. No
Right.
one's going
Yeah.
to tell me that I'm doing it wrong.
Well, the hobby gatekeepers,
they
they may tell you you're doing it wrong,
yeah.
and it's got to be a PSA 10, and it's got to be this card and can't be that card. But that's why I wanted to have you on, because I think this is a really good lesson for people to learn when they're collecting: is collect whatever's making you happy the way you want to.
Yeah, and I should follow that by saying that nobody that I've interacted with in the hashtag wrestling cards has told me I'm doing it wrong. So
awesome. That's good. That's encouraging.
Yep. And so I'll keep going through these. About halfway done with them. But the next one is one that this is showing my wrestling history illiteracy a little bit. But this is one that I didn't realize was the card that I was going to use. This is Big Bubba Rogers from the
Wonderama, right? Yep. Nice.
Or Big Boss Man. And I actually didn't know that that was his like gimmick or name before he ended up as Big Boss Man. Someone on Twitter helped me find that out. And that's why I like sharing the process on Twitter as I was going along.
Absolutely.
I still had a list of people that either I hadn't decided what card I was going to get yet, or I was just waiting for the right one to come up. And so I would share my list every now and then. And when I told someone I was looking for a certain card of Big Boss Man, they said, "Well, why aren't you getting the Wonderama card?" I was like, "Well, didn't even know that he was in that." And so sharing the process has helped me stumble into some cards that I might not have picked had I not been sharing it.
I also think it's cool that it might not be the key rookie card, whatever, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. But the fact that you're picking these cards, I don't know if this was intended, but they're coming from iconic sets. Like 91 Impel is iconic for many reasons. The value might not be there, but that doesn't matter. It's a famous set. Wonderama, same thing. That 85 tops, 86 OP cheat, like all that stuff is iconic for certain reasons. So just thought I'd throw that out there as an observation.
Yeah, and that was something that, along with wanting to collect some of like the bigger stars in wrestling, I also wanted to collect some of the bigger sets, but I didn't want to have to put together a whole Wonderama set and then a whole 85 set.
Makes sense.
And so this was like me being able to comprise like my dream set almost, or like set that has significance to me, as iconic card sets represented, and it was some of my like favorite names from when I was watching wrestling. So it really worked out perfectly in that sense. And these are, I'll show all three of them now. I have them separated by like the match order, but I think these need to be shown together. They're the 95 Panini stickers of Triple H. I was originally thinking about going for the WWF magazine, but what you're just talking about kind of crossed my mind. Like I wanted to have as many sets represented as I could.
Sure.
So if I already had WWF magazine for Kane and I was looking down the line at someone who had a WWF or a different set, I would try and go for the different set.
Now for those specifically, are you going to pick one, or is this going to be a representation of all three?
Well, with the people that had multiple matches against The Undertaker, I try to have one card that represents each match.
I gotcha. So okay.
For his multiple matches, each of these represents a match that he had.
That makes sense. Perfect.
Yeah. And so like I'll get, in just a second, I have another Kane card. And then for Shawn Michaels, there's two different cards as well. This was a fun one, but this is like, I think outside of Giant Gonzalez, this is probably the strangest card in the Streak PC. It's Prince Albert, A-Train.
Oh, yeah. I didn't. That is.
And they had a match with Big Show or Giant there. So those are them.
I've got to say that takes the cake thus far for being the weirdest one in the set.
Yeah, and I tried so hard to have to find the A-Train card, but everything was Albert or Prince Albert or Lord Tensai or whatnot.
Close enough. If you know what, if something pops up, you can always replace it. That's what's cool about this.
Exactly. Yep. And after that, and this is another with the Giant or the Big Show card. This is another important thing to talk about. I think the first card that I had was not this 98 NWO card. It was one of the ones that comes in the pin collection. like
Oh,
the
yeah.
plastic clamshell.
Hmm.
And it's this awesome picture of him like King Kong, basically like towering above the city. And I got that, and that was going to be my card in the Street PC. But then I opened it up, and it was like bent in half, basically.
Oh,
So I hope to eventually get that card in good condition, just because the way the packaging is makes it tough for it to come out in good condition. But that is my preferred card for the big show. This one is just a lot more readily available. I was able to get it for a good price. So that's the one that's in the collection right now.
also, I got to say, the one you picked has the NWO logo on it, which,
Exactly.
represents another perfect time in history.
Yeah, very true. And that's what's so great with so many just important wrestlers and people starting from different promotions or going to different promotions. You get
Yeah.
pretty much all the major brands from that time represented, which I liked.
Yep.
But that's probably the only other one outside of the ones that have Wrestling All Stars that I would consider changing the card out for. And then again, another Kane card. This is my favorite out of his magazine
It's
cards.
got the
'cause it has
Hardys on it, right? Man,
Yep.
you're just knocking it out of the park with this. That's another card that a lot of people consider the Hardy Boys rookie or whatever. So to have that like inadvertently in this PC, just amazing.
Right, and that was something that I did on purpose as well, because I'm from North Carolina. I have a brother that watched wrestling with me. He gravitated a lot towards Jeff. I gravitated a lot towards Matt. That was like our favorite people to watch when we were little. So another way that I was able to sneak some sentimental value in there. And then one of the things that I didn't even think about at the time, but as I started going through, is how pretty much all of the main rookies from this Fleer Royal Rumble set 2002 are connected or in the Street PC in some way. So this is the Randy Orton one. This is one that I hope to upgrade at some point. I got it for like $8 on eBay in a lot.
Can't go wrong with that.
It was just titled like Randy Orton wrestling card lot, and that was in there, and I was able to get it for cheap. So it's a little beat up, but when I eventually go to grade everything, I'll hope to get a better copy of that. But between Randy Orton, Batista being a part of the Streak PC, then Brock Lesnar ending the streak, and then John Cena being one of the matches after the streak, that was a set that I didn't think I would be collecting as hard, but as I started going through, I realized that it would be pretty important to the collection.
I agree. Yeah. Those are iconic cards at this point.
Oh, yeah. And I was actually just able to get the John Cena card recently. I had all the other three. Well, was kind of waiting on the John Cena and went to a local card show. Someone had one. I was able to trade some sports cards for the John Cena, and that rounded out my 4 main rookies from that set.
Nice.
Yep. And this is the only card that isn't from a technical wrestling set. This is Mark Henry from 1996 Upper Deck Olympics. It's a weightlifting card is what he's depicted doing there. And I just thought that was also one of the early cards that I got. And I figured if I can get something that's his earliest card and something that's kind of not wrestling, but he's the world's strongest man. Shows him doing a big squat on the back. I'll show you that. It's an awesome picture.
It is an awesome picture. I'm curious why they didn't use that as the main picture. That would have been much better.
Great. Instead, it's just him kind of like sitting there on the bench.
Right.
But that is a pretty neat card, I think. And also, I thought it was fun to be able to get in something that was not a specific wrestling set, but had a wrestler pictured.
Yeah, I like how you went outside the box there. Most people that follow me on social platforms or watch these videos know that if I get a chance, there's like oddball stuff. You can look behind me, like, I'm all over the place. Like, not spread too thin, but if there's an opportunity to get oddball releases and fit them in with what you do, which is what you just did, I think that's great.
Exactly. And I've always been a fan of that sort of stuff as well, the oddball, the non-sports sets, the variety sets. So being able to get something like that was pretty fun. And here's the Batista from the Flair Royal Rumble.
Yep.
Again, another iconic card, iconic set. And this is one that the next one is one that I thought about quite a bit before I decided what I was going to do. Now I have a little bit of FOMO with it, but I got the 1998 Comic Images Edge.
Mm-hmm.
This is his first one by himself. He has that BBM card with Christian,
Right.
the Colorado Rock.
Yeah, whatever they're called. Yeah.
I never remember it. But anyway, I thought for so long about getting the BBM card. They are from the same year, and eventually I decided that I wanted to have just Edge by himself. And again, this is a rule that I break in the very next card because I have the Rockers.
Oh, Marty.
Shawn
Yeah.
Michaels and Marty. But for whatever reason, I just wanted the card of Edge, and I also didn't have any comic images cards in the set as well. So
you know what though? Maybe that's something you change down the road. Like the Streak PC is finished, so now you can maybe go back and fine tune it if you choose, because it is your collection.
Yep, and that's why in my Twitter post, if you guys go check me out there at Collecting with C, cheap plug. But when I made my post about showing all the cards, it's the Streak PC version 1. So there's room for improvements, there's room for changes, just depending on what I run into, how my tastes change, how I'm feeling on a certain day.
Sure.
But yeah, like I said, there's no hard and fast rules, because here I use the classic Rockers and as one of the entries for Shawn Michaels. And then the next one that I use, this was a gift contribution to the Streak PC from Matt Delakis on Twitter. The Market Scenes.
That's the one for me, man. I love that card. Yeah.
It is incredibly good looking. I love that set so much. Matt was someone that I talked to a lot as I was kind of coming towards the end part of the Streak PC, asking for advice, kind of bouncing ideas off him. And one day he was talking about how he had picked up a lot of those cards and kind of upgraded the condition of the ones he had. And I was telling him how that's one that I hope to add down the line for Shawn Michaels. And he said, well, I've got one that's pretty beat up. And he sent it my way. And I'm so very thankful for that. I think that just really embodies the community that the wrestling card hobby has.
Yeah, no kidding. It's out of any community that I've ever been in with any kind of hobby related stuff, it's by far the best. Like, people just send you free stuff out of nowhere. It's amazing.
Exactly. You'll get something cool like that, and then I'll be able to pass something on a couple weeks down the line. And I just like how everybody is able to help out people's collections when they know they're going after something specific or know it would be something that they would like.
Right.
And coming down to the end, this is one that I found at a local card show as well. I was going through dollar boxes while I was saving up for the last card that I needed for this, the last card that I needed for the Streak PC. And I found this 2004 Pacific TNA red foil CM Punk. I got not only that, the red foil, but also his base card and his tag team card from that set. So I paid $6 for those 3 cards.
Oh my. See, guys, it pays to go through those dollar boxes at the shows, at the LCS, at the flea market, whatever you're at. Go take the time. Trust me.
Yep. And that's quickly become my favorite thing to do at card shows.
Yeah, same.
Because being a wrestling fan, like I went to that card show expecting not to see any wrestling. And even though there was a 98 WCW Eddie Guerrero autograph somebody had, and there was a Wrestling All-Stars Ric Flair autograph somebody had, also out of my price range. But outside of that, you don't really expect to see much wrestling. So I figured I'd take some cash, go through the dollar boxes, put it up on eBay, try and make a little money. And I was fortunate to find an entire row of a box that was just wrestling,
nice.
$2 a piece. I found that card. And what was cool about it is I sold the base card because I put it up for an auction right when he came back, made his debut in AEW, got very lucky with that. But I was able to sell his base card, keep the more rare of the two for the PC, and come out with some money to put towards other cards.
That's how you do it.
Exactly.
That's what I've been preaching since day one on here.
I was about to say this.
I do want to take a short pause in this to ask, I know you've been going to more card shows than I don't go to a lot because there's honestly not a lot around me and I hate traveling. But what are you seeing out there currently at these shows? Is wrestling getting any buzz at all? Is it getting more popular? Are people, the hype bros, are they still snubbing their nose at wrestling? Like, what are you seeing out there when you go to shows?
Yeah, it's been really interesting because, like I said before, I'm in North Carolina. So there's 2 or 3 cities that there's shows in, and they're all like an hour, 2 hours drive for me. So not too bad at all.
Yeah, that's not bad.
But the one that's closest to me, they usually have wrestlers as like guest autograph signers, basically.
Cool.
So in 2 weeks, they're going to have Kane there at the card
Nice.
show, which is pretty awesome. But that is the one that I found the CM Punk card at, and I was decently surprised with what the amount of wrestling I saw. There was that row of cards in the dollar box. Then some people had some modern, like women's division, finest, chrome, stuff like that. But then when I went to this most recent card show, I was really shocked at how much wrestling I saw. There was one guy that his entire table setup was wrestling. He had all-in sets. He had all-in cards. And I walked up and I was looking through his table, and he said to me, like, yeah, he was talking about the all-in set and how it had gotten so valuable so quick. He said, yeah, man, someone came and bought my Britt Baker for $25. And he was like so excited. And I was like, man, I would have bought all your Britt Bakers for $25.
Guy had no idea what he's talking about. I mean,
Exactly.
he did, but apparently he didn't. Like,
right. It was weird because he told me that, like, yeah, I used to be selling these for like $3 or $4 a piece. And then they've gotten so valuable. And I just sold my Britt Baker for $25. It's like, oh, man.
Okay.
More power to you, dude.
Yeah. I mean, he made some money on it no matter what, you know, because those sets were, you get them on high spots for like $5-10. That's what I paid for mine in bulk. But
yeah, that was really cool to see an entire table of wrestling cards. One of the things I think helped that show that I went to is that it was a sports card show, a non-sports show, and a toy show. So
cool.
I feel like there's a little more crossover at that one from the non-sport people and the toy people having wrestling stuff versus the dedicated sports and memorabilia shows that we have. But I will say from my experience in the couple that I've gone to in the past few months, wrestling cards have been alive and well in the card show scene. That's
good to hear. You know, I'm hoping that they just keep getting bigger and better, and not, you know, just for the respect. Like, I sell wrestling cards, but a lot of the stuff I have, I don't plan to sell anytime soon, if ever.
Right.
But I just think that they need more respect. You know, you've seen on my videos, most people have seen me talk about all these fringe things that all these big platforms want to talk about, but they won't talk about wrestling. So this is good to hear. Maybe things are going to change soon.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm hoping to start setting up at the show that's a little bit closer to me. I'm trying to sell some wrestling stuff. The only bad part is most of the stuff that I'm trying to sell right now is my sports stuff to buy more wrestling things.
Right.
So I'm gonna have to stock up on some wrestling stuff that isn't PC things to try and spread the word a little bit and get it out there into like my local community at least.
Sure.
But I've been happy with what I've seen so far from that.
Cool. All right, let's finish up this PC.
Yep, and we're down to the last card. This was one that came in the mail
yesterday. That was a coincidence. I just wooed.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
Hold on 1 second. I'm trying to find it. I can't find it.
Oh, anyway, you've already lost it. Oh my gosh.
I have the card. I was going to show you that it was sent in a regular bubble mailer, and when I saw it, I was like so disappointed. It took a little longer than I expected to get here, and I was kind of worried it was going to be in a bubble mailer. Thankfully, it arrived safely. But the last card that I had to add to the Street PC was the
beautiful
Wrestling All-Stars Ric Flair.
Which you would think the Hogan or the Andre would be it, but this is starting to become the card in the set for numerous reasons.
Right. It is, and that's why I've been pursuing this card. Like, I knew that that's the one I wanted for Ric Flair pretty much from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But my mindset at the time was, well, I'll just pick up like the cheaper cards and then see how it goes, see if I'm still liking it and everything.
Great way to go about it.
Now looking back, I wish I would have just got the big one out of the way at the beginning, but that's how the journey went. And I'm not
sure.
I don't really regret anything. But that Ric Flair card is one that I've been pursuing and been in auctions and stuff for the past like month nearly. And I've been getting outbid constantly, sending offers and the person telling me they won't do lower than this. And then 4 hours later, it sells for 200 less than that.
Yeah.
And so just a lot of like frustrating aspects trying to track down this big card. And then finally, I sent messages to everybody that had a Ric Flair listed on eBay for the most part. I'm trying to make a deal. Someone sent me an offer. And this is when, like in the past week or two, even it's been starting to get hot and swing up. And I think this is kind of the same for most of the Wrestling All-Stars cards right now. But I
Also
decided
say that it's interesting, and this is something I've also been pointing out to people who don't believe in wrestling cards. The whole dark side of the ring thing with Ric Flair, common knowledge would think that, okay, well, his card values are going to tank. Nope,
Yep.
they've just gone up even more. So
Exactly. And that's like, even in this past week, I watched the dark side of the ring. I had the same initial thought and was tracking it. And I was like, well, man, these cards have gone up in price, which
Yep.
is kind of nuts, but it's how it's happening.
Legends never die, regardless of what they say or do. Sorry, it just is what it is.
Right. And I think that's something that is across the board for wrestling, whether it's good or bad. That's for people to decide. But that's what we've seen in the past with other people as well.
Sure.
But I got an offer that someone was willing to sell it for, decided it's not going down anytime soon. It's time to just jump in. This one is graded a PSA 7. I figured that I would not have a chance to get it graded that high if I kept waiting.
I agree.
So I just went for it, pulled the trigger on it, and I'm so glad I did. It's been so awesome getting this card, and like seeing it in your hands is so different than I've been looking at this card nonstop for like multiple months, but when I opened it up and held it in my hands, it was like unreal.
Very so what I want to talk about real quick is, well, I say real quick, you can take as much time as you want. What did you learn from the time you decided, okay, I'm going to start this, and then now you've finished? You were involved with a lot of activity, a lot of searching, a lot of dealing, haggling with people trying to get cards. What's some stuff that you learned during this process that you think you could pass on to other people, that the information they could use and apply to their hobby, whatever it is that they're collecting?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things I learned with the Ric Flair card in particular was being okay with consolidating, like getting rid of some cards that, like, I may not want to sell it 100%, but if it's putting money towards something that I absolutely know that I want, that's like a grail level card, you got to be okay making some concessions.
Sure.
So there was a lot of, because what my strategy mainly was is I had saved up some money from selling other sports cards that I really didn't care about, and had kind of whittled down to my stuff that is either PC or I like kind of cared about. And then that's when you have to start making the tougher decisions of, okay, am I okay with getting cash for this today to put towards the big thing, or am I trying to wait weeks or months for it to go up $20-$30? And so that's where I had to start deciding, okay, it's okay to get rid of this stuff. A lot of it was like base rookies, so I didn't feel as bad about getting rid of it. If I want to go back eventually and get another copy, definitely doable. But that was the most important lesson, I think, was you have to get rid of some cards that you like to be able to get cards that you're going to love.
That's a perfect quote right there. I think I'm going to crop this and use that at the first of the video. That's perfect.
There you go. Yeah, and that's really what I've learned in the past couple of weeks, especially, is that you can't hold on to everything. That's something that I kind of done before, is really just held all the cards I had in my collection. Mm-hmm. And then if they spiked in value a ton, then I'd sell it, sure. But if I didn't feel the need to, I'd hold on to everything. But now I'm getting a lot more comfortable listening to your content. I've been listening to a lot of Stacking Slabs. That's something that he preaches.
Shout out Brett, Stacking Slabs.
Yep. Great content, great community member as well. Been listening to a lot of his stuff and kind of getting in that mind frame that in order to level up or advance your collection, sometimes you're going to have to get rid of stuff that you like. But in the end, it's going to be worth it. And also something that I've gained a lot from this process is like going to the local card shows and stuff. It's a lot different than like sitting on eBay and sending offers and that sort of thing. Not having had all that social interaction for the past like year and a half, 2 years. It's like, it's hard to go back kind of to the card shows and like talking to people and haggling. And the first show I went back was a little bit rough, but then get into the swing of it on the second one, and it's starting to come a lot more naturally, like having conversations with the dealers, connecting with them about their cards, and not having it be so based on, I have this much money to give you for this card. I think that's really important, and that's a great way to build your network and to connect with people. And in some ways, you can almost get better prices that way when you're just having a conversation with a person versus only trying to buy what they have.
Yeah, building the relationships and then expanding that into community of whatever kind of realm in the hobby that you're working in. I've learned firsthand that it's made a huge difference, because I've gotten information, or I've gotten cards or trades, or being able to buy stuff that I wouldn't have had access to otherwise if I didn't communicate. So if you guys are out there and you're into the wrestling card space, make sure you're getting involved with everybody on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, like whatever your platform of choice is. You can follow Caleb, you can follow me, follow Tony, follow David Peck, Rob England. There's so many good resources out there. Wrestling Price Guide, WrestlingTradingCards.com, all these. Just get involved, because you never know what's going to pop up. So speaking of that, Streak PC is done. Where do you go from here?
That's what I've been asking myself for the past week and a half, 2 weeks, trying to decide what's going to go on. I've been brainstorming new ideas for another project, because what I liked about this was it provided me something that I could accomplish. Like, there's an end to what I'm trying to do, which I like. Being able to finish the Streak PC, and now it's okay, on to the next thing. And so I hope to do that for whatever I collect next. It's definitely going to be involving wrestling cards. I hope to have it based in AEW or independent wrestling in some way, since I feel like I have a lot of WWF and WWE represented in this collection. I want to try and kind of encompass as much as I can. The only problem being AEW Upper Deck cards haven't come out. They haven't been around as long, so there's nothing really comparable to the Streak right now. So right now it's kind of a waiting game for those cards to come out, see what happens with those. And then also I'm taking this time to make any upgrades to the Streak that I find as they come along, and then hopefully get them all graded at some point. That's kind of the big step right now.
Real quick on the grading, are you going to, okay, let me backtrack. So you've got the Undertaker in the SGC and the Ric Flair in the PSA. Are you going to be one of those people that has to have the slabs like in the same type of slab, or are you just like, hey, I want it graded, I don't care?
Right. And that was one of the reasons I was going so hard for the raw Ric Flairs that were up for sale, that I liked the condition of. My hopes were to match it all. I was going to go SGC with all of them to match the Undertaker. But since I got the Ric Flair, I don't think most of the cards that I have in here make sense to send to PSA right now, with prices being the way that they are. So if anything, they'll either all be SGC except for the Ric Flair, or I'll just hold on to them and wait and kind of see how grading goes and then make that decision.
Sure.
But I don't think I'm not gonna crack out the Ric Flair, and I don't think I'm gonna crack out the Undertaker to send it to PSA.
I am so against cracking out cards.
Yeah.
I know people do it all the time, but I can't stand doing that.
Especially like I'd have to practice on something way less expensive for both of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I'm just gonna leave them how they are. It's not something that bothers me too much. I do like the SGC look, but value-wise, having the Ric Flair and the PSA, the more I thought about it, just makes sense long-term, I think. But yeah, I hope to get them graded at some point. I'm in no rush right now. It's going to be something that in the current climate is pretty expensive to do. But for the protection aspect and the display aspect is why I want them to all be graded. Not
I think
necessarily about the number.
I think that, yeah, buy the card, not the grade. Like, we've heard that a million times, but clearly we still want these graded. Right. And I think, it's lucky for you if you're going to stick with SGC, and at some point, trying to get all of them in SGC, like, you're in a good spot, because like their return times are good and their prices are fair. So like, you're in a good spot. I think that's cool. One last question, and then we'll get out of here. How are you going to display this? We've kind of talked offline on Twitter about this. How do you plan to display the Streak PC, where hopefully at some point people will be able to see this on your social media platforms?
I know that's also been something that I've been working on recently. I want to have them in some sort of display case. At this point, I'm trying to do a little bit more research now that I have the Ric Flair card. I want to make sure that's protected, and like, I don't want sun or light or anything like that to impact it too much. But I still want these cards to be seen and for me to be able to enjoy them. So hopefully finding some way that I can make sure that they're safe, but still able to see them in a display case would be ideal. I've kind of toyed around with the idea of having like a custom display case made of like a tombstone or a coffin.
I think that's amazing. Yeah. Have you seen I believe they're called Show Your Slabs or My Slabs or something like that. There's a company out there that makes the giant PSA looking slab. Like, it would be something cool like that if it was a coffin, a tombstone, Undertaker logo, like something cool like that. So, and you know, that's another thing that maybe all this activity you're doing of buying and selling and trading, consolidating, maybe you take that money and put that into a display case. And then, you know, once again, it's like buying a card. By doing that, you're not out your life money. You just, it's part of your hobby. So yeah, good idea. Something to think about. Thanks for coming on the show. I think the information that you've passed along to everybody has been just phenomenal. Let everybody know where they can find you, and if you have any kind of parting words for everybody that's collecting.
Definitely. So if you guys want to see all the pictures, and I put together a little video clip of all the cards last night, you can check me out on Twitter at collectingwithc, or on Instagram that I just recently made. I have like 9 followers, so follow me on there.
Get that follower count up. Let's go.
At Collecting with Caleb for that one. So those are the 2 places that I'm at right now. And my kind of words to leave you guys with are collect cool stuff. Find something that you're passionate about, a wrestler, a sport, whatever it may be, and find ways to make collecting fun. That's what it should be at the end of the day. This shouldn't be stressful. This shouldn't be upsetting. Collecting cards or memorabilia should be something fun for you.
Couldn't agree more. And once again, I'll say thank you for coming on. And the links to Caleb's social platforms will be in the show notes with the rest of the stuff that I always post down there. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks again to Caleb for coming on the show today. But really, there are 2 things that I want you, the viewers, to take away from this conversation. Number 1, whether you're a veteran in this hobby or you're just getting into it and this is your first wrestling card video you've ever seen in your life, just remember, whatever you're collecting, whatever you're buying, whatever you're into, make sure you like it. Caleb's example today is a perfect way of how anyone should approach the hobby. And I know, there's no right or wrong way to do the hobby. We've all kind of established that on a lot of the shows that me and Tony have done in the past. But at its core, you've got to have a passion and really love whatever it is you're into. And I think that's something that just kind of gets lost by a lot of people. They're in that transactional mindset of, what's this worth? What can I flip it for? Instead of, this is a cool card that reminds me of this moment in time. Or, hey, I was at this event where this picture of this card was taken, etc. But Caleb set out to create something unique for himself because he wanted it. Not for anyone else. Not because he was trying to impress anyone else. Not because he's looking to put this thing together and then flip it. Really, you think some of these hype bros buying their PSA 10 base sports cards are going to care about putting a streak collection together? Get out of here. And guys, I know, it can be tough in today's landscape of social media. A lot of you out there may not have these big dollar collections. I don't even have that big of a dollar collection. I have some cool cards, but I don't look at it as like, oh, I'm cardboard rich or anything like that. And I say it's hard in today's age of social media because you see these people flexing. They've got all these stacks of PSA 10s. You get the David Pecks and the Rob Englands of the world. Everybody's collections are growing by the day, and some of you may feel kind of left behind because you don't have that collection. But just remember, the hobby's meant to be fun, meant to be an escape for you, not anyone else. This isn't a contest. Not trying to impress people here. The second thing I want you to take away from this interview is Caleb's work ethic. Caleb wasn't able to put this streak PC together overnight. While I am a big proponent of urgency as far as work ethic and, hey, let's, get things done instead of sitting around binge watching Netflix and also working towards goals, whatever that may be, I'm also a huge proponent of being patient when it comes to financial spending. There is no reason for you to go out and get yourself into some more debt, or even if you're not in debt, put yourself in some sort of financial bind just to obtain a piece of cardboard with a wrestler's picture on it or some other form of collectible. And remember, the chase, the journey, that's where stories are told. That's where lessons are learned. And come on, it's just fun. Thanks for watching today. Again, make sure to check out Caleb on Instagram and Twitter. Links in the show notes. While you're checking out the links in the show notes, make sure to check out everything I'm involved with, the podcast, Patreon, Spotify, buying me a coffee, whatever it is. I'm doing a lot of stuff down there. Make sure to check it all out. But until next time, click the videos on the screen for more great wrestling card content. We'll see you there.